Hi friends and family, welcome back to another video. If you're new here, welcome to Minimal Homestead. I'm Andrea and my family of 3 live in a borrowed RV on our 1-acre piece of land while we attempt to build a metal home debt-free. If you're interested in any of that, please follow along by hitting subscribe down below. In today's video, I want to talk about how we moved our RV. A little backstory, if you haven't followed along with us so far, we actually started on the left side of my mother-in-law, and our property is on the right side of our mother-in-law where we're building. So we started there because our land was completely bare and we needed a septic, electricity, and water hookup to be able to move. If you haven't checked that video out of the things that you need before you can move onto your property, I'll link that down below and you might want to check that out first. Once we had those things accomplished, we were ready to move onto our property. We got the property in our name, we got an address, and we got a driveway installed. If you haven't watched that video or read that blog post, I'll link that one down below as well. So the time came that we were ready to finally move our RV to our actual property. This was a super exciting process for us for many different reasons. We were ready to be on our actual property. We were prepared and got ready for this step about a month or so in advance. So we started moving over our outdoor toys, our fire pit, our wood pile, the things that we could go ahead and move that we wouldn't miss day to day. We went ahead and moved over beforehand. The day came that we were going to move the RV, so our first thing that we needed to do was prepare the RV to be moved. So our slide out had to come in, and I was a little nervous because we had spent about 2 years with the slide out. To prepare for doing that, we moved everything to the other side of the RV that we could that was in the way of the slide out moving. We did that, and it was literally as easy as pushing a button and the slide out came in. And fortunately, we didn't have any issues with that. We disconnected the electrical lines, our septic hose. Obviously, we closed our septic holding tank, gray water holding tanks. We detached our propane. We made sure that anything that was hanging or that might fall that was tall was laid down. All of our hoses, extension cords, the septic hoses, all of the accessory pieces, we put all of those in the back of the truck. We raised up the stairs and we took the RV off of the cinder blocks and all the wood pieces behind the wheels out of the way. We hooked up to the tractor, my husband's grandfather's tractor, and we chose to use the tractor because it would pull the RV very slowly, and that's what it did. We hooked up to the tractor, we pulled some cattle panels down. That's the beauty of the flexibility of cattle panels, and off we went and we ventured through the pasture. My husband decided to back in the RV, so that's where we started, and our goal was to have the RV facing east behind our house. That way our back porch for our house would be a front porch for the RV. It all was a great idea until it came to executing that idea. And we had just recently installed our septic. Now, if you haven't seen that process, it will be linked down below because that is a huge process that we went through to get that in. So we had just had that installed and the frame of our house was already up. So this created some obstacles for the tractor and the RV to be able to park, because to pull the RV through, the tractor would have had to driven over our newly installed septic, which we of course did not want. So we had to come up with another plan. We tried and tried different angles and it just wasn't working. We tried parking behind our shop. We tried making our carport our front porch for the RV. We didn't have the frame of our house up, then the tractor would be able to accomplish that feat. But it is what it is. We were in that step. We were thankful for being in that step, but it made it an obstacle as far as getting the RV in. We finally decided, probably on our 10th try, to go back into the pasture, turn back around, and have him pull the RV through. After many more tries, we decided we just needed to park this thing and figure out a place for it to be Our sweet little indoor cat was inside the whole time, and this was September in Texas, so it was still quite hot. And the AC, of course, was not on because we were not connected to electricity. So we said, we need to get this thing parked. So we finally came to where the RV is now parked, and the tractor ended up pulling through the carport to have it stopped. It's not too far away from the electrical, it's not too far away from the septic, it's not too far away from where we're parking. We ended up facing south, and we're right outside of our build, and we actually really like it. It turned out for the best, and we have tons of trees on our property, but we're parked underneath 2 enormous oak trees, which is really nice to help with shading of the RV and electrical costs, and just the peacefulness of living underneath some oak trees. We put up a hammock in between the 2 of them, and we're loving it. It wasn't our first plan, but it ended up working out in our favor, and we're really happy that we got our RV moved over. It was a relatively simple process. It just took some work, and the hardest part was trying to figure out how to actually move it to a comfortable spot for us. We were parked. We just had to do all of the things that we prepared to do to move it in reverse order. So we moved that slide out back and put everything back out where it was before. We hooked up to septic. We did end up needing an additional 2 septic hoses to reach to the length of our septic because we were not in the ideal place that we thought we were going to be super close to it. It's fine. It works. We hooked up to electricity. We re-hooked up our propane. We didn't move our cinder block porch over that we had at our old location, which was very nice, but at the same time, our parking spot will be our backyard one day. So we decided just to move a couple cinder blocks for an extra step, and then we moved all of our stepping stones because it does get very muddy out here when it rains. So before we had moved, we had installed a temporary fence around our property, and we installed 2 gates. So we have a drive-through gate that was actually given to us, and we have a walk-through gate that I actually really love that our big dog won't be able to get out of. We purchased that at Tractor Supply, and so the dogs were all set up to be on the new property. They stayed at my grandparents' house, and our daughter stayed at my mother-in-law's house just to be able so we can focus on what we need to do and not worry. One of the only things that we left at the old property was our shipping container, and that has tons of things from our old life before we moved into the RV, and I honestly think a lot of it is going to be donated or sold because we haven't used it in over 2 years. But when we're ready to move in, we will empty the container and do what we need to do. We'll either put it in the house, sell it, or donate it. And once the container is empty, then we will begin the process of moving that over to our homestead. And since that storage container is something that we own, then we can use it for other purposes. We plan to put our lawnmowers and 4-wheelers, possibly feed, outdoor storage, that type of thing in there, outdoor playthings, to be able to give my husband more room in his shop, and lots of plans. So one day we'll have that moved over. We moved the RV over in the fall, and we actually moved the garden over before we moved. We moved the garden over in the spring, not exactly sure when we were going to have the RV to follow, but it worked out that the garden was already here and set up by the time that we moved. Feel like it was just a homecoming, and we had so much relief of just being on our own property, and we're further back from the road, so we're a little bit hidden back here. We love all the trees on our property, and we've loved taking care of it and seeing it grow, and so convenient just to have our build right outside. We have the extra storage of our shop, and that we've definitely been utilizing. That was our process of moving our RV. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Have you ever had to move your RV before, if you have one? I hope you've enjoyed this video and it's brought value to your life. If so, please consider hitting like and subscribing. I can't wait to give you the next update. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video. And more follow. What are these things called? The septic. It's garden. We actually moved over and just Clark.